All right. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us for the Women's Press Club of Pittsburgh Leadership Info session. My name is Nicole Chynoweth, and I am the treasurer of the club. I work at Point Park University, where I serve as a content manager covering the schools of business, arts and sciences, and education. I write feature stories about alumni, students, and faculty. I have been involved with the press club since 2017, when my former supervisor, Connie George, recruited me to come on board. So just to give you an overview of what we'll be discussing today, just hold your questions until the end. Stacey and I have a bit of a spiel and an overview of what it means to be involved in the club, what's expected of board members, and most importantly, what's in it for you guys? What can you get out of the experience of being a board member or just being involved with the club? So before we dive in, I want to say thank you to the Point Park University Center for Media Innovation so that we could use their Zoom account today. You can learn more about the center at pointpark.edu/CMI. And now I'm going to toss it over to Stacey so she can introduce herself, and then we'll get into the Q&A here.
Thanks, Nicole. I am Stacey Federoff. I first got involved in the club, I think it was around 2010, shortly after I graduated from college and started as a reporter at the Trib in Greensburg. And the past president, Kelly Gormley, was a reporter at the Trib at the time, and sent out an email blast to the women of the Trib, and I was like, I should get more involved in this group, especially just to meet more women at the Trib, let alone throughout Pittsburgh journalism. And so from there, I joined. I think eventually, it took me a while even to remember everybody's names. So I think I try to keep that in mind whenever I'm talking to people, introducing people to the club, introducing them to other board members, that I'm just excited that we have women and men who are involved and passionate and come to events, and like I said, in talking with most of you in the emails that I did when I reached out to you, there's no pressure at all to join the board right away, but I truly appreciate that you're involved, that you're interested. But to tell you a little bit more about myself, currently I am a senior account executive at Red Havas, which is a public relations agency with an office on Liberty Avenue downtown. But prior to that, I worked for 8 years, 5 years at the Greensburg in journalism, 5 years at the Greensburg Trib, 2 years at the Beaver County Times, and a year at the Pittsburgh Business Times as a journalist, and then freelancing while I earned my master's degree at Point Park University. So with that, like Nicole said,
Stacey. So I figured this is probably the most important question that we want to answer for all of you today. What are you going to get out of being involved with the Women's Press Club of Pittsburgh? I thought I'd just start off by kind of sharing my experience, and Stacey can also share, what she's been able to get out of it. And I think between the two of our experiences, you'll get a pretty good idea of the awesome networking and fellowship that you can enjoy through the club. Like I said, I got involved in 2017, but I was aware of the club long before that. I actually shared a desk with Stacey at the Tribune Review in Greensburg, my first job out of college. And she was always talking about things the club was doing. I remember hearing about the potlucks that they would have at Connie George's house to gather with members and mingle. And what always stood out to me was how she was able to forge these awesome friendships and bonds with so many different women in various aspects of local media. And unfortunately, I left the Trib to move to Eastern PA, where I worked at the Hanover Evening Sun and then the Central Penn Business Journal. So I sort of fell out of touch with the club during that time. But then I missed Pittsburgh and I wanted to move back. So I took a job at Carnegie Science Center. And shortly after starting, Connie, my boss, she really encouraged me to get involved with the club because it was a great way to sort of reintroduce myself to the local media landscape, who's working where, and just make those valuable connections professionally and personally with women in the field. And I joined the board as treasurer. It was my first board position ever, and I've really enjoyed it, not only from working directly with the other board members, but also just getting to meet our membership. And I've formed so many different intergenerational friendships, women who have already blazed a trail for me and so many others, and also younger women who are coming up in the ranks in journalism, PR, and communications in Pittsburgh. So for me, the greatest benefit that I've seen has been making those important friendships and professional connections that have only enriched my own career and the work that I've done at the positions I've held since moving back to Pittsburgh. So with that, Stacey, what have you gotten out of the club?
Oh, what haven't I gotten out of the Women's Press Club? I was gonna first mention, Nicole, that I think Connie is a great example of someone in communications who has really been a stalwart supporter of the Women's Press Club, even though she's not a journalist. She was a board member doing public relations for the Pittsburgh Zoo and for Visit Pittsburgh, and then onto the Carnegie Science Center, and really was really helpful and a strong contributor, even though she was in communications. So I think she's a great example for anyone who is in communications, that your perspective is still invaluable to the Women's Press Club. But as far as what I've gotten out of it, I was thinking back about being involved, and I know for a fact that at least one of the jobs that I applied for, interviewed for, and really enjoyed and grew through was directly because of the Women's Press Club. One of the members had encouraged me to apply to the Beaver County Times, and I barely even knew where Beaver County was. I think I had probably seen the job listing, but was like, oh, someone else. That'll be for somebody else. But she encouraged me to apply, and I come to find that was for a cops reporter job. And when I did the interview for the cops reporter job, I come to find there was a copy editor job open, and they said, would you also like to be considered for the copy editor position? And I said yes. And so I spent just about 2 years at the Beaver County Times, and a group of my friends who are all about my same age, young women, we are the closest of friends to this day from the Beaver County Times, and I wouldn't have had that without the Women's Press Club. And that's just an example of a sort of a secondhand connection. The women who I've met through the Women's Press Club have a few of them here today have been great to get to know and find other opportunities and friendships with. I think the other thing that I really appreciate being a journalist, being someone who likes a good story, is that the legacy of the Women's Press Club is impressive. We could start a new club for women in journalism, and it would be an entirely different thing. But the fact that the Women's Press Club of Pittsburgh has lasted in this region since 1891 is really important to me. And when I came to find that we'll touch on this a little bit later, but when I came to find that the archives of the club are housed at the Heinz History Center, like that was really meaningful to me, to be a part of something that now this year, 2021, is celebrating 130 years was something that like carried a lot of weight. You know, apart from also encouraging students to pursue journalism and then become the next leaders through the scholarship. So all that combined together is like what I've gotten out of the club. So so I would say, yeah, just takeaways being the intergenerational friendships, the meaningful discussions at the events that we have. Meant to touch on that. We'll get to that later. Encouraging the students and the next generation of journalists, and supporting the legacy that goes all the way back to 1891.
Stacey, can we talk about the mission next? If you could describe the most important part of our mission.
So I thought when I was putting this slide together, I thought if you're a visual learner, I always think of the press club when I see this GIF of these women helping each other up. And if you've heard the phrase, lifting others as we climb, that's in essence what I think of when I think of the mission of the Women's Press Club. But here you see this is the formal written mission of the press club as written in our bylaws: for professional fellowship and enrichment, including the advancement of women's interests in journalism. So it's very broad, and I always appreciated that, you know, there is a lot of leeway in where do you take that? Where do you take advancement of women's interests? And we can talk a little bit more about that at the end, you know, what the vision for the future in the club might be. You know, we expanded that into the wording that is on our website homepage, striving to honor the club's past and forge into the future by providing a place for women in the news media, and that includes journalists, writers, editors, photographers, etc. So we seek to encourage future generations of journalists by annually awarding dedicated students with the Gertrude Gordon Memorial Scholarship Fund. So, you know, that's where we start. That's like our bedrock in our bylaws.
Oh, very nice history timeline here, Stacey. Thanks for pulling this together.
So yeah, starting it and looking back, since we are the second oldest press club, women's press club in the country, I think it's, I looked it up and I couldn't find, I think it's Indiana maybe has the oldest women's press club, but the press club was founded in 1891. This is just to give you a little bit of an idea that of a couple of the things going back through the club's history. There was a book produced for the 100th anniversary in 1991 that is a great resource if you really want to get into the weeds with the history of the club. And I took a screenshot. You can take it out from the library. There's 6 copies at the Carnegie Library. I also have some copies if you're really dead set on wanting to dive in. But one of my favorite pages from the book is this cartoon from 1933. You know, what is it that women at the Women's Press Club talk about? And you see this cartoonist, you know, with his interpretation behind a screen in a shadowy, you know, room that we're all, what are we talking about? It's really not that secretive. But I wanted to mention, here's a picture of Gertrude Gordon She is the reporter, one of the first in Pittsburgh to have her byline on her stories, was a sob sister who did these kind of outlandish pieces in the, I think it was like the 20s and the 30s. So here she is with a lion. And there's another one, I think she went up in a hot air balloon, something like that. Yeah, it's been 60 years of the scholarship, which is really impressive, 65. And I need to get this to the History Center, but I also wanted to do a little show and tell here. So the club has its annual dinner, which is coming up here soon, October 6th. We will talk more about that at the end. But really, the annual dinner is to honor the scholarship awardees. We don't have writing awards. The Press Club of Western PA does a great job with their Golden Quill Awards. We let them have their writing awards. The PBMF, the Pittsburgh Black Media Federation, has writing awards. We don't do writing awards. I've also thought, again, if that's something, we want to think about for the future. But in years past, the Women's Press Club did have writing awards, and they were called news hens. And at one time they were pins. They were awarded lapel pins, which I would love to see or find one of those lapel pins at some point. But this was found by someone at an estate sale. And because they saw that it was the Women's Press Club of Pittsburgh, he reached out to me online and said, I'd like to give this back to the club so that the club has this. And it's very cool since it's from 1952, the News Hen Award. But do you notice the funniest thing about it is that it's a rooster? But so this will go in the History Center archives, and I have a box of things that I've been meaning to get to the History Center. But we've had a couple different events. The event to celebrate our 130th anniversary earlier this year with the History Center talked about our archives. We had our 125th anniversary in 2016 physically at the History Center, and they rolled out the carts of papers, and we had a chance to look at things like the scrapbooks that they would make every year. And so that just gives you some idea and a little bit, a taste of the background of the club.
So what can you tell us about what is required of board members? What's expected of somebody on the Women's Press Club board, Stacey?
I think, like I mentioned before, there is a good amount of leeway. It's not, we have our bylaws, which you can find on our website, and we last updated those in 2014. So they're still relatively up to date. The most important things when it comes to being a board member is that the president must be a media member and the vice president must be a media member. So ideally a journalist. Whereas the secretary, treasurer, and the board members can be women in communications or from a different background, an industry member, as our bylaws call it. But the board meets monthly, and we have done it either by phone or in person. Nicole, correct me if I'm wrong, we actually haven't used Zoom, or maybe we did once or twice.
We're pretty efficient over the phone.
Yeah, since we were in the habit of being over the phone, we just kept it rolling during the pandemic over the phone with a conference calling number, and that way, we can have the meetings in the middle of the day. Everybody's busy. Journalists have hectic schedules. So the president leads the meeting. I usually also compile the agenda, and just like any other board, if you're familiar with, we go down through the agenda. We review the minutes from the previous meeting compiled by the secretary. That's the main job of the secretary. And then the treasurer's report every month is compiled by the treasurer, who also handles the bank account, which is usually the busiest around the scholarship time, right, Nicole?
Mhm. Yeah, usually the busiest with the banquet, because that's when we're handling all of the ticket purchases and also paying the venue and any other related costs from that. Um, for what it's worth, I've never considered myself a numbers person. I find the treasurer role to be pretty easy and straightforward.
We
So,
have and the membership dues, that's something else
oh,
that
yes,
the
yes.
treasurer helps handle, and the secretary, one of the board members, well, all three of the board members, really, all of the board members help with membership and current membership lists, that sort of thing. Anything else related specifically to the board members? I think the most important thing to me is that we have a quorum and that a majority of the board members agree and when we vote. And so that, I think that's the other thing. One of my goals was that we have regularly scheduled board meetings to be able to get more people, to just sit in, the regular membership to sit in. With the pandemic, that was a lot tougher. And it was already tough.
Right before the pandemic, where
yeah, it was already tough.
And a few other folks joined us, and it was great to have some other voices in the room. So hopefully in the future we'll be able to pick back up with those. So I was wondering, Stacey, maybe we could talk about a bit more about the scholarship.
Yeah.
If you want me to, I'm not sure I'd call it my baby, but I care about it a lot. I work pretty hands-on with this aspect of the club. So our scholarship contest is an awesome opportunity for budding journalists, students studying English, writing, any sort of writing related field really, or communications, to write a story on deadline and flex their news writing skills, news feature writing skills rather. So we hold this in the third Friday of February every year. Usually we hold it at the CMI at Point Park, which is great because we get some Point Park students joining us there for that. But we invite students from Western Pennsylvania region universities and colleges to come on campus, and they have the opportunity to interview together as a group someone newsworthy from the Pittsburgh community. So a few examples of past speakers include Allegheny County Councilperson Bethany Hallam. Last year we had 412 Food Rescue CEO Leah Lizarrando. We had the former Kelly Strayhorn Theater Artistic Director Janera Solomon.
You see her in the picture there. That's what she's on the right.
Yes, and we've had Shark Tank winner Simple Sugars, the CEO Lanny Lazari, she joined us, and Tom Kurlander, founder of 21 Voices, which advocates for Alzheimer's research, also joined us.
Yeah, he's there on the left. That all came together. He's the only male speaker we've had in the last, we try to always highlight a woman in the community as the Women's Press Club, but it worked out that year because we were kind of theming everything around Alzheimer's research. We had speaker Nicole, I'm blanking on her name. Oh, she wrote a book about Alzheimer's, and so then we themed everything that year around Alzheimer's research, and so that's why Tom Kurlander was the scholarship speaker that year, because Nikki was the dinner that she spoke at the banquet, and it was really powerful. But there you see some of our winners. We're going to honor them, like I mentioned, October 6th this year. So this is the past 2 years worth of winners. This year, in February 2021, was the first year we had the entire contest virtual. We had, wondered and worried about, how can you hold students accountable virtually when they have to interview someone and write the story on the deadline. But we had no trouble, with that this year. We were able to have, I think it was a few students who were, from Western Pennsylvania, but students at universities in, I want to say like Eastern Pennsylvania. And that way they were able to take part in the contest they wouldn't have otherwise. And, an important note, that the fund for the scholarship is administered by the Pittsburgh Foundation. So anytime we have money to go into the fund, it is going to the Pittsburgh Foundation. And I always think that is a really nice like check and balance, that if anything were to happen to the club or the board or anything like that, the scholarship is safe with the Pittsburgh Foundation.
I really love being a part of the scholarship contest because it's so exciting to hear from students how much they get out of it. The thrill of writing, a news feature story on deadline, competing for up to $1,000 is pretty enticing for students. And what's also really cool is to see after they've graduated where they go on to work or the interesting internships that they land while they're still in school. So I think what the thing that I find most powerful about the scholarship contest is that it really emphasizes what the Women's Press Club is all about, which is supporting people in the media, women in media, whether that's PR, communications, journalism, and also lifting up the next generation. And like Stacey said, we celebrate them at our annual banquet. Hope to see all of you there October 6th. And we'll be hosting it at the Threadbare Cider House. This year we're doing things a little bit differently. Instead of a formal sit-down dinner, we thought it would be nice, given the last crappy year and a half, to have more of a intimate, cozier atmosphere, a little bit more laid back. So if you've never been to the Threadbare Cider House, it's a really cool facility. We'll be stationed in a couple of their rooms on site. They have a nice outdoor pavilion tented area, as well as an indoor area where we'll have a buffet set up with appetizers and dinner. And the highlight of the annual dinner is that we invite a guest speaker to come in and share a presentation related to something of note in the news. Past speakers have included Sally Stapleton. Stacey, what are a few other notable women who have joined us?
Yeah, you see Terry Muchler at the top of the slide here. She was the former head of the Office of Open Records and wrote a book about coming out as openly gay. And then it's Nikki Capsambellis is her name. She's a freelance writer who wrote a book called The Inheritance about research being done at Pitt and a particular family who suffer from early onset Alzheimer's. And so she actually we had the Alzheimer's Association there. Like I mentioned, we had Tom Kurlander as the scholarship speaker. We had her books for sale. And she actually brought two of the women who were profiled in the book to the dinner. So that was a really powerful presentation that year. And I also wanted to mention, you could see how we usually have a sit down formal dinner. But yeah, this year we're hoping to make it a little more updated a little bit. I wanted to mention, that for the 125th anniversary, we had Rich Fitzgerald come and give us a proclamation. And he did that again this year for the 130th anniversary, which we presented at our virtual event in February, which is a good segue, I think, into our other events. So any any and all events beyond the scholarship contest and the annual dinner are fair game, I think, for the board to, kind of determine through their ideas and feedback from the membership. Those could go, I feel like they can run the gamut from, being the press club, just kind of taking advantage of what's happening in the region, whether it's a movie, we've taken some trips to see journalism themed movies like The Post, or Pittsburgh themed movies like A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, where we had a sweater drive and gave the sweaters as a donation, kind of to go along with Mr. Rogers' theme. Then, kind of the next bucket of things I would say are educational discussions, where some of which we partner and just say, hey, there's a speaker at Chatham, has a lot of great female journalists they bring often. And they say, well, let's get a group together and we'll go hear the speaker, or we should take part in the event that they're putting on at Point Park or Duquesne or Pitt about journalism. We also, I didn't even know what Off the Record was until I was like, it's journalism related, we should get the Women's Press Club to go. But because the Post-Gazette Union and SAG-AFTRA put that on, and it's a parody of everything that's happened in the news in Pittsburgh over the last year. It's a great time to be with a group of journalists. So I've enjoyed that. They're actually having it virtual again this year, and it's coming up in October. But then we put on our, I think the most involved we can be is to put on our own events. And we've taken advantage of things like my personal favorite event, the very top left, was a pretty big group of panelists, but I knew that some tech reporters from a publication I think it was in Seattle, called GeekWire, had chosen Pittsburgh and the tech scene in Pittsburgh to do a month-long residency. This was in 2018. And I thought, well, we're having these tech journalists come to Pittsburgh. Why don't we get them together with tech reporters who are from here? So we discussed, the kind of their perspective on a national level and what it meant for Pittsburgh. And it was a really interesting, well-informed, stimulating discussion about a very current topic. And so we've even done, things that are, a little less related to journalism, but still fun and interesting. Like the middle picture there was from an event related to the eclipse, where we talked, thanks to Connie George being on our board, we talked to some of the members of the planetarium at the Science Center and learned about the eclipse exclusively with a group of us from the Women's Press Club. So that was really cool.
I think another really cool thing about the events that we participate in or organize is that we partner a lot with other journalism organizations in the area. And that tends to make for a really robust attendance too. So just going back to the networking opportunities that the club provides, that's another great example that you might get to meet people from SPJ or PBMF. And we also have really great partnerships with a variety of educational institutions in the area. We've worked with different universities to provide programming for the membership as well. So I think really whenever it comes to events, the sky's the limit in Pittsburgh. There's so many great organizations that we can partner with to provide enriching experiences for our membership. So I know we just have a few minutes left here, so I want to pitch it to you guys to see if you have any questions or ideas that you would like to share, whether it's about the board specifically or just the club in general. Just raise your hand here if you if you want to. Oh,
for that, Nicole, I wanted to mention the reason why I was kind of segueing with this photo is that I put this here because this particular year, I want to say this was 2017, all the press clubs in Pittsburgh were led by women. So I think that just goes to show not only we were all there together to show like the partnerships and the bonds that we all had together, but also the fact that because it's it's great to know that women are involved in all facets of journalism in Pittsburgh, and the Women's Press Club is a part of that.
Good point. So, anybody have any questions?
I had one quick question, Stacey and Nicole. Just how many events do you have, and how do you raise the money for the scholarship?
Sure. So, Stacey, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we usually try to have about 4 events a year.
Yeah, my goal as president was always to try to have something every other month, and if it ended up that we did have some, that if we if we had something every 3 months, that was great. Our bylaws require, I want to say it's 2 meetings and 4 programs. So like the bylaws require 6, but I always tried to do more than that.
And in terms of, we'll get to you in just a second here, Sue. In terms of the scholarship, there's a fund established by Gertrude Gordon's family. Is that correct? So that feeds into it, and then also our just general fund supports it as well.
We usually at the banquet we have a raffle every year, and that contributes funds to the scholarship fund, and we also have events throughout the year where we designate contributions, but really the membership dues is what ends up funding programming, and we try to make sure that donations donations during the raffle or something like that go directly to the scholarship.
What's your question, Sue?
Well, so you might have already answered this, so apologies if I missed it.
No
but
problem.
Stacey, I know that you have been president for many moons, and how long are the terms supposed to be? And,
yes, it's supposed to be two-year terms. What happened? The reason why I took over kind of as interim president again was I had stepped down. We had someone step in who was elected president, but she had to step down after about a year. So then the pandemic happened, and that's how I am still president. But I say all that to say, because I'm in the role now in public relations, I am more than happy to step down but continue to support whomever it is that the board, the nominating committee chooses as the next president. So anyone who decides to step into that leadership role will not be flying blind. We'll have the support of. You have my full support. You have a few boxes of papers and lots of files and all that sort of thing.
So all roles are open, all positions are open right now, and they would all be for two-year terms?
Right. Well, 1 2-year term, and then, should you choose to run again or express your interest again, and the nominating committee can nominate you for a second 2-year term.
All right.
Francesca's got a question.
Hi. First of all, thank you, Stacey and Nicole, for putting this all together. I'm Francesca Becco. I'm the director of the Incline. I've been director since March, took over for whom you may know, Rosalind Colgan. Very lucky to have learned from her.
Member of the club.
Yes.
Supporter of the club.
Yes, very excited. Sad that she's no longer in Pittsburgh for the moment, but she's doing awesome things at Columbia in New York City. So my question is, if we would like to join the board or any other positions, what are first steps we need to take? What happens next?
Good question. You would have to just reach out and let us know that you want to be considered. If there's a particular role that you want to be considered for, or more than one, that would be great too. Just say like, here are the 2 or 3 positions that I'm interested in. And, if you had any further questions, then the nominating committee, which usually consists of, I'm not sure, I can't remember the number, usually consists of members who are not currently on the board, will put forth a slate of officers, and then we vote on the full membership votes on the slate that the nominating committee brings forward.
I have another question.
And that's all in the bylaws. So like if I'm remembering it incorrectly, refer to the bylaws on the website.
I have one more question. I know 1, maybe 2 people who work for Storyburg who would be interested in joining, and I don't think they were able to get on the call today. And they asked if this was being recorded. Mm-hmm. So, and it is. So, if I could get that to send to them, that'd be great.
For sure, yeah. We have a YouTube channel, and I was planning on posting it to YouTube and sharing it with social media and putting it on our mailing list.
All right.
Doing all that great stuff too.
All right.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I wanted to be mindful of our time. I wanted to keep it to a tight 45 minutes. Last thing I wanted to say, I see that Helen, a couple last things. Helen Fallon did join us, and she wrote in the chat that if you have any questions for her, because she also has been involved for a long time, to reach out to her via email, hfallon@pointpark.edu. Wanted to mention again, more details about the dinner. Registration is now open for the annual dinner. That is tinyurl.com/WPC130 and the word dinner. So,
I also pasted the link to the dinner in the chat.
Oh yeah, that's
that wants to.
And then I also wanted to mention that everyone here today, I have your email addresses. I know I promised raffle prizes. So everyone here today will get it fell on the floor.
An exclusive
Women's Press Club tote bag. And as long as I have all of your names, you also will receive a free year of membership, just as a thank you for participating today, and in appreciation of your interest in doing this. I think that's all.
I think that wraps it up. So
for now.
Everyone so much for joining us today. I hope that you've learned some things about the club, and we'll maybe choose to get a bit more involved this year. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to Stacey or me or anybody else on the board. We're happy to chat about our experiences and what you can expect from serving on the board. So again, thank you all so much for your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks all.